Hello. You know what time it is. Stuck in a rut, read a book, don't like to read, take a look, and I'll read the book for you. Welcome to Jordy's Book Report, the podcast. Let's get into it, shall we? Today we are reading Your Best Year Ever by Michael Hyatt. And this isn't the typical book that I would read at this point in my improvement journey, but it is something that does have some helpful points, and I think it does make it very simple to learn how to set effective goals so that you can achieve your best year ever, as claimed in the title. This book was not actually something I had read prior. I don't usually like books like this. Like I said, it's not my normal go-to, but I thought that this might be interesting to read, and it was recommended to me by a few people, so I decided to check it out. Why am I talking like that? I don't know. Really weird inflections. I'm glad I looked at it because it did kind of highlight things that I've let slip away or I've forgotten personally, so it did end up being a good thing. I'm not sure if you can hear my bird, but he's outside the window, and I hear him chirping. It's very hard to cover every single point made in a book in a short time like this, because every book, even on Audible, is about 6 to 9 hours long. So of course, we're not going to cover all that in 30 to 45 minutes, but I did write down some points to make it digestible for you. So the thing I liked best about this book was this sounds like a lot of my clients and a lot of people that I talk to on the phone in regards to their fitness specifically, but it does definitely fall under the category of anything really ever that you're trying to accomplish or do. And so in this book, he starts off with the intro being your best is yet to come. Many of us stop making New Year's resolutions because we've failed at them in the past. Welcome to the club. I'm a part of that club. Gyms bank on people making year-long contracts with them, knowing that they are going to fall off after a few weeks. Gyms can afford to oversell their capacity because they know we will get distracted or discouraged and lose interest. And that's common. I mean, that's pretty true. A lot of gyms have way more members than they have people actually attending the gym. However, I will say in this pandemic, there have been some gyms opening and having lines around the corner because they have capacity and a lot more people seem to want to go to the gym right now. Generally, our resolutions involve health, wealth, and personal relationships. That's a good thing. It makes the world a better place. So us having these goals that help us have a better quality of life actually help the world in some way or another, because we are offering something or improving the way that we carry ourselves or conduct ourselves in the world, and that's never a bad thing. So most of us have a long history of not getting what we want out of life. Maybe we set big goals that we didn't achieve, or life didn't turn out how we thought it would. Disappointment turns into frustration and anger, then sadness, then it twists into cynicism. So that's where you have the people whose dreams never became a reality. Therefore, they believe nobody's dreams will ever become a reality. I have definitely encountered people like that, and I usually just don't really listen to them, because what works for some people won't work for others, and it has a lot to do with your approach. Fear not, this book is here to help you make these the most intentional and meaningful months of your life so far. And because of that, I thought it was appropriate for January, ending January. I know we're coming into February, and I'm going to be reading a lot of books about relationships and love in that month that you might find interesting, saucy, juicy. So stay tuned for that, but let's not get ahead of ourselves now. Back to this book. So our lives are more than our works and even our families. Your best year ever is based on 5 key assumptions, and the 10 domains of those are 1, spiritual, 2, intellectual, 3, emotional, 4, physical, 5, marital, if you have a romantic relationship, 6, parental, why did I say it like that, parental, 7, social, 8, vocational, 9, hobbies and pastimes, 10, financial. This means that you have to give each domain the appropriate amount of attention to be happy in all areas of your life. So that's fair. If you're doing good financially but not good in your relationships or physically, you're probably not going to be happy, and vice versa. So it's very important to pay attention to these domains in order to feel fulfilled and happy and satisfied. I agree. You can improve these domains no matter what's going on in the world. You don't have to settle for how things are. And I'm a big advocate of focusing on the things that are in your control, because it really doesn't help anything or anyone, including yourself, to focus on things that are outside of your control. So in this book, they refer you to this life score assessment test that's free online, that's designed by the author, and it's at bestyearever.me/life score, or is it / I don't know, life score. I have it in the show notes, and if you want to take that, go ahead and take it. The overview of this entire book is that the author is going to help the reader reach goals in 5 simple steps. 1, going to help overcome any doubts one might have about experiencing their best year ever. 2, going to talk about getting closure on the past in order to confidently step into the future. 3, going to give a framework to show how to set goals and really achieve them. Effective goals are specific and measurable. 4, the author is going to introduce you to your why to make you unstoppable. 5, I'm going to put all the pieces together in order to help you better take action. So the reason why all of this is important is because if you're able to learn how to do this, which some of us are already living in this way without even having read this book, because we have read other books that taught us very similar concepts that have instilled those values into us in order for us to be productive. I feel that a lot of books I have read have prepared me for this and have helped me, although it's very normal, I think, to fall off or lose focus, or at least it's been normal for me to do that. So this book is cool and very detailed, so if you want to read it, you can go onto Audible. I have a link now. It's audibletrial.com/Jordy. If you want your free month and a free book, you can try to get this book and see if it really helps you in detail. But for now, you can continue listening to this podcast for more notes about this book. My dad just texted me. I should put my watch away. Step 1, believe in the possibility. So your beliefs shape your reality. Our expectations shape what we think is possible and our reality. Failure of imagination causes failure. So if you can't imagine your goal being realistic, or you can't imagine yourself achieving certain things, you probably won't be able to. You won't take the steps that you need to take in order to achieve that goal. So if you're sure you're going to do something, you're more likely to accomplish that thing, no matter how possible or impossible it may seem to others. Chapter 2 talks about how some beliefs hold you back. There are 2 types of thinking: scarcity thinking and abundance thinking. Some people think that their problems are too hard to overcome, whereas others focus on finding new ways to overcome those problems. Researchers name the first group entity theorists. They think their abilities are set in stone. Research is called the second group incremental theorists. When they struggle with an obstacle, they just look for new approaches. They know that there is a workaround or a solution if they just keep on trying. So those 2 words were really weird to say. So I hope that you understood what it was saying. But that is basically, I feel you can decide what type of person you're going to be, because I've been a scarcity thinker and I am now an abundance thinker and have been for a while. So at least I believe I am, or at least inching my way towards that, if not. So one leads to fear and discontentment, and the other leads to joy and success. Scarcity thinkers don't believe that there's enough of anything, and they're stingy with their contacts, with their knowledge, etc. They also assume that they are just the way that they are and resent competition. They're usually pessimistic about the future and avoid taking risks. That's a scarcity thinker. That's scary. Abundance thinkers are confident. They are happy to share their knowledge and contacts with others. They are optimistic about the future and welcome competition, believing that it makes them better. They believe that the best is yet to come. And I am happy to be part of that group, and I would love for more people to be part of the group if they're not. Because if you're a part of that group, I assure you, you will feel a lot more happy and satisfied and fulfilled along the journey, and be able to enjoy it more and grow more, meet more people, and just be a better person. Not that I'm saying that I'm perfect or anything, but I do know that abundance thinkers are the people that I like to surround myself with and try to be like and emulate. And the other kinds of people are really kind of unpleasant to be around. They're usually the gossipers and the ones that are judgmental and putting others down, others who are putting forth effort or taking risks or just doing something that for some reason makes the person who is being judgmental feel insecure. We've all been there where we've been subject to that. So that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't help that person, and it doesn't help the person who's trying. So it's really, I thought I saw something on my hat. It's really kind of not a great attribute. Chapter 3, you can upgrade your beliefs. Instead of limiting your beliefs, you can embrace liberating truths. The author goes into talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and Steve Jobs, who both were historically famous for doing those things. Embracing liberating truths, basically. And he does give exact examples of how they did that, but those stories were really long, so I didn't write them down in my notes. So with intention, we can imagine a better reality than the one we are currently experiencing. By visualizing the future, we can govern our current actions and give meaning and purpose to them. Lastly, it's important to take action. Whatever our circumstances, we have the power to pursue a better future. Some people believe that because they can't control the circumstances, they can't control the outcome of any aspect of their lives. Yes, just because one thing's out of your control or one thing feels unattainable doesn't mean everything's out of your control and everything's unattainable. Do not limit your goals to your current resources. Imagine that. Imagine you limited your goals to what you currently had access to or resources, the resources that you had. That would be really, really sad, because I know for a fact a lot of us start with nothing. So what goals could we set if we did that? However, a lot of times people are really trying to set realistic goals, quote unquote, what they call realistic goals. But I've heard in this book that later down the line is referred to as a comfort zone goal, which is not really a good one. And I'll get into why. So limited resources is okay, because every struggle we overcome makes us better and more equipped to handle bigger obstacles. So if you have limiting beliefs, the author suggests that you write down your limiting belief and then evaluate it externally. So separate yourself from it and look at it from the outside. Reject or reframe that belief, revise the belief, and then you can upgrade your belief. And upgrading your belief is the first step necessary in experiencing your best year ever. So step 1, action plan, recognize the power of your beliefs. Step 2, externalize your limiting belief. Number 3, upgrade your beliefs. And aside from the main belief, our past can hold us back as well. So you can have limiting beliefs, but also be hung up on your past, and that might help that might be stopping you from progressing and moving forward. So imagine having your goal and start living as if you already have it. Visualize it and believe it. Some of my notes don't make any sense because I use voice notes to write it down. So I just read them verbatim so that I don't spend too much time thinking in between sentences. And I notice that a lot of times they don't really make sense. So I think one thing I'm going to try to make time to do is revise my own notes and make sure that they're a little bit more legible for myself when I'm on the podcast, because I am learning from my own mistakes right now. Chapter 4, thinking backwards is a must. In order to move forward from the past, we have to remember it and process it. In the Army, they do something called the after action review, where they review what went wrong and what could have been done better. That is something that you can do in your own life. Let's do an after action review whenever we make mistakes or feel we could do something better. If you can analyze what went wrong and why, you'll have a better chance of accomplishing your goal by making the necessary change in the future. Writing it down will help you to make a better after action plan and make it more effective. Stage 1, state what you wanted to happen. Stage 2, acknowledge what actually happened. Ask yourself, what disappointments or regrets did I experience this past year? If you try to suppress or push these feelings into the back of your mind, you will never truly be able to move forward. Stage 3, learn from the past. Unless we learn from the past, we will never grow. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that was a very powerful sentence to me. Don't focus so much on the outcome, but more on taking the next right step. Remember, you can do everything you want, just not everything at once. that is something that I need to remember. And I tapped my head if you're listening to the audio podcast. Stage 4, adjust your behavior. Also remember that some of our greatest disappointments may lead to our greatest possibilities in the new year. I always like to try to see the good in the bad, and it's hard to do, and it's something that's become easier over time, but there's no point in dwelling on things, and the more you dwell, the more you kind of sabotage everything else that is going right. So I would say just take the good from the bad, and that's not in the book, but it's kind of goes hand in hand. Chapter 5, regret reveals opportunities. Whenever things go wrong, wait and see what better thing is coming. We experience what we expect. So if you expect something, you'll continue to experience it, and that makes a lot of sense. So we just went over the action plan overview, which is state what you wanted to happen, acknowledge what actually happened, learn from the experience, and adjust your behavior. There are 7 questions that need to be answered in order to effectively move on from the past, set goals. They all go hand in hand. So the 7 questions are: how did you see this past year going? 2, what were your concrete goals, plans, dreams? 3, what were your regrets or disappointments this past year? 4, what did you feel you should have been acknowledged for but weren't? 5, what did you accomplish this past year that you were most proud of? 6, what were 2 or 3 specific things that kept reoccurring or kept happening? 7, what were the major life lessons that you learned this past year? So if you can ask yourself these questions and answer them honestly, you can identify things that happened in the past and then accept them, process them, and move on forward from them, instead of kind of pressing them down, holding them in, and not learning from the experience. If you repress things and you don't learn from them, it's kind of counterproductive. So I think that's a good thing to do, because I've been one to do that myself. So then the author goes into talking about gratitude. I have gratitude tattooed on my hand. I got it a few years ago. No regrets. They talk about that in this book too. If you've seen the movie, I think it's called We Are the Millers, I'm not sure, but there's a guy and he has the tattoo across his chest, says no regrets, but it's spelled wrong. Anyways, the author talks about that in this book. Gratitude is not just a mood, it's a way of thinking. Try starting and ending each day with a prayer where you express the things you're grateful for and focus less on what you want and don't have. And for those who are spiritual, you can pray to God and be thankful. And that's something I need to get better at doing, because sometimes I forget because I get tired and my mind is somewhere else. And I'm too busy listening to Harry Potter on Audible. So, I really need to get back to doing that, because gratitude is good. Goal setting can be counterproductive. The author goes on to explain the importance of written goals versus ones that we just think of in our heads. So writing down your goals is not the end game. It does, however, force you to clarify what your goals are. So writing down your goals helps you to fight resistance, and articulating your goals is not good enough. You must execute and take action. The first of 7 attributes to setting smarter goals are that they are specific, measurable, actionable, risky, not necessarily realistic, you know what I mean? Tie and keyed, which is weird, but it's a weird way of saying setting a timeline. Tie and keyed, who even says that? Come on. Exciting and relevant. So avoid setting more than 7 to 10 goals, or you might be spreading yourself thin or just end up being counterproductive. There are multiple life goal domains, and it's important to set goals within each of them. A reminder of what they are, we talked about it earlier, is spiritual, intellectual, emotional, physical, marital, parental, social, vocational, avocational, and financial. If you need to write it down, you need a dictionary, definitely pause, be my guest. Some goals are achievements and some are habits. Achievements have an end goal or end date, and habits do not. An example of an achievement versus a habit is, an achievement would be, I want to run my first marathon by March 17, 2021. Or a habit would be run 2 miles a day 3 times a week. There's really no end to that. We think that if we had everything we needed and we were comfortable, we would be happy. That's the opposite of the truth. With no struggle and too much comfort, we become miserable. There's no excitement and no new adventure in our lives. Pursuing risky and significant goals makes us happy because of the discomfort. Discomfort is essential for achievement of meaningful goals, and it's something that we should embrace. Comfort is overrated. It often leads to discontentment and self-absorption. Discontentment is a catalyst for growth. It forces us to change, grow, adapt, and stretch. Discomfort signals progress. So it's good to be uncomfortable. That's a lot of the reason why we feel happy and satisfied and like we've achieved something. Our goals can fall under 3 categories: the comfort zone, discomfort zone, and delusional zone. There's a lot in this book, you guys. There's a lot in this book. So I'm really trying to teach you how, or explain to you how structured it is, but there is a structured strategy that the author recommends to the readers in order to better execute and be more efficient in setting goals. Chapter 10, basically your what needs a why, and now I get it. I wrote your what needs a why and it didn't make sense to me, but your goal needs a why. It needs a reason behind it. So anything worth doing isn't all fun. It certainly isn't fast or easy. Fitness is a good example of this. I didn't say that, the author did. A lot of people will restart trying to reach their fitness goals a half a dozen times before hiring a personal trainer, and that trainer will push them to do things that they wouldn't push themselves to do. The commitment also helps with the accountability. So a lot of times, because of the fact that achieving your fitness goals isn't fun, it's not fast or easy, most people do not follow through with it. And that's why hiring a trainer makes people more successful in that endeavor, at least to start. I've hired many trainers myself, so I totally understand. I'm even learning boxing right now, and there's no way I could learn that by myself. It's just something that I really need hands-on help with. So I can only imagine that it would benefit some people to either get, some type of structured support in working out as well, especially if it's not something they're well versed in. Success in your social circle is important. That's another thing that the author goes over in this chapter. There are many historical phrases that stress the importance of the people we surround ourselves with, like in the Bible, Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so does one another. I actually have that tattooed on my neck, in case you're wondering what that was. I really like that verse. And the author quotes that verse or that quote from a book, not knowing, I don't think, that it's from the Bible, but it is from the Bible. And I was like, whoa, buddy, that author that you quoted is not the original creator of that quote, but it's all good. Our peers matter, especially when it comes to overcoming obstacles or achieving things like, weight loss or addiction, overcoming addiction, stuff like that. Who we're around really makes a difference in whether or not we achieve those goals. So the right peers will help us to stay accountable to our goals. They'll maybe even instill a little competition, and competition is a good thing and not a threat to abundance thinkers. One of the reasons why telling people your goals, though, does make them less likely to happen is because your brain gets the same satisfaction as if you've accomplished the goal already once you begin telling people about it, which makes that goal less likely to happen. If we share our goals with selective, supportive groups of friends, it can actually help us to accomplish them, because those people will help hold us accountable, they'll push us, and it is helpful sometimes to share goals with the right people, but it ultimately is smart to keep them to yourself, write them down, and make an actionable plan towards achieving it. There is something really powerful about groups with a shared experience or goal. Like in Alcoholics Anonymous, when alcoholics look around the group and they see other people who've achieved sobriety, they think it's more realistic for them or attainable. Belief is easier when it occurs in a group or community. Depending on what your goal is, you can join various communities of like-minded individuals, such as running, exercise groups, masterminds, mentorships. You can create a group of your own if what you are interested in doesn't exist. And depending on what your goal is, you want to be around like-minded individuals in order to help hold yourself accountable and feel that it's more possible. It's even better when you're around people who've already accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. Detailed planning is a fancy word for procrastination, or a fancy way of procrastination, or a fancy way of procrastinating. Wow. So if you spend too much time detail-orienting everything and trying to make everything perfect and being a perfectionist, basically you're just procrastinating, and procrastination is never good. If I perfected this podcast, it would have never came out. It would not be out now. This episode will not be out. This episode is far from perfect, but it's out. And I put some content out there and I'm learning as I go along. Like I learned right now about my notes, how they don't make sense, and it makes it hard for me to be well versed in my own podcast. So another tip is to do the easiest task first. And if you do the easy thing first, you can trick your brain into continuing to take action once you've gotten started, because you'll have a little bit of dopamine to get you through doing the harder things. But if you start with the harder thing, you could drain your momentum and motivation and just throw the whole goal out. So just commit to act. And if you rely on getting something done in your free time and don't commit or make a plan or set an appointment to do it, it will most likely never get done. And that's why I always tell my clients, if you're going to work out, set the days ahead of time, make an appointment, show up to that appointment for yourself, even though no one's going to be there. Just make sure you do it. And that's it. Like I do that for myself and it works. So that's what I always recommend. But anyways, I need that because that's recording the sound of the podcast and I almost closed my laptop. So that was silly. This book was interesting, and this is a little bit of a shorter episode. It is a kind of a shorter book, and I didn't really have too much to say about that book other than the concepts were very clear and somewhat repetitive in the world of self-help and self-improvement. And I would like to definitely read books that talk about more specific topics than just this, but I do think this is a good book to read in January to just really reframe or get yourself in check and ready to face the year. So that's why I chose to read it now, and in this podcast at least. And I will be reading The 5 Love Languages and Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus for Valentine's Day, or leading up to Valentine's Day. When you understand how people feel loved, or when you understand the difference between how men and women think, it does help you to take a better approach when trying to communicate something with someone else that isn't you. So I'm going to be reading those books upcoming, so stay tuned for those. I'm excited about those. I like those books a lot. I still refer to them, and I read them years ago. So if you guys want to download Audible, you can use my code www.audibletrial.com/Jordy. You get a free month, a free book if you're a first-time user, and I highly recommend it for anybody who's busy and doesn't have the time to read. I will see you next week, and if you want to support the podcast, we have merch now. It's down below. It's me and Nala, coffee cups, t-shirts, sweaters, whatevs, stickers. I got one on my laptop right here. Oh, that was awkward. My keyboard cover came off. Thank you so much for listening, and you can listen to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as well as watch this video podcast. I appreciate you guys who are still tuning in, and I'm working on making it better every week. So I hope you guys are successful in your goal setting endeavors, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.